Well, good morning, Grapeview friends. Here we are in the middle of January. It's still kind of gray and gloomy out there. And of course, we've been restricted more and perhaps isolated more for many of us. And yet, God is present. The living God is present in each of our homes and spaces where we are. And as we find whatever limited ways we can to be in contact with one another, we trust that you continue to be encouraged in your walk with the Lord, that the habits and disciplines of your Christian journey are not falling by the way as many other things are. And so I encourage you to continue to engage with the presence of the living God there in your own space. So there's this story in the Old Testament about a boy named Samuel who gets woken up in the middle of the night thinking that he's hearing someone call out his name. Samuel lives with this old priest named Eli. Maybe he's mumbling in his sleep, or maybe Eli actually needs some help. And so Samuel goes into Eli's room and wakes him up. Well, you can imagine that was a bit annoying for the old guy. And this happens several times with, I imagine, just a bit more frustration each time. Finally, the old guy realizes. It's kind of like the light dawned on him. Maybe an epiphany moment. And he says, "Hey, Samuel, I wonder if that might actually be Yahweh, our God, trying to speak to you." So the next time that happens, just say, "Yes, Lord, I'm listening. Speak to me. I am your servant." And that's what happens on the fourth try where God is trying to reach out to him. So a couple of things. In 1 Samuel 3, where this story is told, it starts with this: "In those days, the word of the Lord was rare." Well, it makes sense if the old priest can't even recognize that this might be God speaking. Maybe there weren't many people listening, or maybe the weight of the world was just too much to bear, and no one was lifting their eyes to heaven. Maybe people had forgotten the light. Well, and then we have this word from the Lord that comes while Samuel is sleeping. His sleep is disturbed. And I wonder if that's a way that the Lord still speaks to us today. Has your sleep been disturbed recently? I know there's lots of reasons for our sleep to be disturbed these days. But maybe even those negative reasons that our sleep is being disturbed are somehow about God trying to get our attention when we've finally slowed down enough to hear him. Just something to think about. And yet God spoke in a time when the word of the Lord was rare, when perhaps people were weighed down, not really listening for God. Still, God spoke. Now, people who track these kinds of things say that in our present moment, deaths of despair, that's what they call them, have rapidly increased during this pandemic that we're in. Suicide, drug overdoses, other types of deaths that they refer to as deaths of despair. People who've come to the conclusion that there is no hope and so want to escape in some way or another. Yeah, it can be easy to give up on God, to decide that we are just here on our own, that God has abandoned us. We can't see where any of this is going. And so that's the attitude that seems to be reflected by one of Jesus' disciples here. Well, before he became a disciple anyway. So we're going to pick up the story of Jesus just after his baptism. That was our story last week. So let's read about this fellow, Nathanael. So the next day, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, "Follow me." Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and told him, We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nazareth? Can anything good come from there? Nathanael asked. Come and see, said Philip. I really like Philip's approach here. He has invited Nathanael to consider Jesus as the Messiah they've been waiting for. Nathanael replies, yeah. And he raises the most common objection. This Jesus, he's just a guy from Nazareth. And Philip replies, come and see. No big argument, no apologetics, no defense. Just come and see. Take a look at this man and tell me it's all just nothing. There are no arguments we can convince people with. We just need to point people to Jesus and let the Spirit take it from there. But there is a bit more to Nathanael's objection here. Now, these guys are all down here around Jerusalem at the time of this story, probably there for some big festival. And that's how they came to be hanging around where John was baptizing. But these fellas, they have all come from Bethsaida, which is a couple days north. Philip, Peter, Andrew, and now Nathanael, all from Bethsaida, this fishing village by the Sea of Galilee. And it's in an area where there was really a lot of interaction with people from multiple cultures and backgrounds, all coming to get the resources around the Sea of Galilee, whereas Nazareth was this kind of hick village up in the hills. And so that's why we get this statement from Nathanael. He is really not prepared to hear anything good coming from Nazareth. Yes, the word of the Lord was rare in Nathanael's day too. But he knew if it came, it wasn't going to come from Nazareth. He was a bit of a skeptic, maybe not looking for a Messiah like his friends were. Maybe he was doing fine on his own, thank you. I wonder if sometimes we aren't ready to hear from the Lord because of who it's coming from or where it's coming from. But let's continue in our story here. When Jesus saw Nathanael coming, he said to him, "Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." "How do you know me?" Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree, before Philip called you." Then Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus said, "You believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree? You'll see greater things than that." He then added, "Very truly, I'm telling you, you will see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." Wow, that's quite a turnaround for Nathanael. Nathanael, the skeptic, meets Jesus, and Jesus' insight into his life just makes all the difference. This is Nathanael's epiphany moment, a moment of clarity when everything just seems to make sense. And Nathanael knows that he has encountered the living God. That's the kind of moment that each of us have to come to. That moment of clarity when we realize that this one who knows me inside and out, this one is the living God. And from that moment, our lives are reorganized around this truth. Now, our psalm reading today is from Psalm 139, and I just want to read a couple verses of it. "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar." Well, we know there's a lot more in that psalm as the writer describes all the specific ways and situations where God knows us. where God understands us, God calls us to himself. There is nowhere that we are not known by God. So this is one of the key things that I would say for me turned my heart to respond to God's grace. God knows me inside and out, and yet he still offers this gift of love, his love for me. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. I think that was what Nathanael understood that day. This Jesus who knows who I am, and yet he still wants me to join the family. In those days, the word of the Lord was rare. In Samuel's day, in Jesus' day, some might say in our day. When the people of Jesus' day had not heard from God in 400 years, it didn't mean that God had abandoned them. God was still there, knowing each person intimately, just like there in Psalm 139. Just like in Jesus' response to Nathanael. I know the kind of person you are, Nathanael. I saw you. It's interesting because probably Nathanael imagined he was doing just fine on his own, thank you, until Jesus showed up. So we want to be known. When we let down our guard in those quiet moments, we long to know God and be known by God. We want so much more of life than we settle for most of the time. We want our relationships to be deep and satisfying. We want to trust. We want to love. We want someone to know us. All our strengths and our weaknesses, all our beauty and our ugliness, we want someone to know us and love us still. And then Jesus shows up. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Yes, Nathanael, come and see the one who knows you and still loves you. We all need a wake-up call, like Samuel, to keep us from sleeping through our lives. Someone who calls us by name. And our response to that call, speak, Lord, your servants are listening. We need to recognize and acknowledge the presence of God amongst us. So that's something good that we're all longing for, man. These days we're hoping for something good. Well, in Jesus, that something good has already arrived. It's not, Lord, get us out of lockdown. It's not, please let these kids get back to school. It's not, let me see my kids or my grandkids, I'm missing them so much. It's, yes, Lord, I'm listening. What do you want from me today? What's the good news today? Even when the word of the Lord is rare, he has not abandoned us. Even when we are in despair or skeptical about where God is, he has not abandoned us. He's going to show up. Will we be listening? Will we respond? Will we be the ones saying to our neighbor, come and see this one who knows all about me and still loves me? Man, that's good news. Take care, friends. May the Lord bless you and keep you this week. Amen.